let's get a little bit into this 49ers O-line because there are some pretty big question marks when it comes to the O-line right now. Trent Williams has a high ankle sprain, and now you're going to see the clear point of weakness, non-quarterback related, from this 49ers team. One of the big areas that the 49ers have done well in over the Shanahan era is they've been able to run the football and be very physical. I think that this offensive line that they are throwing out is arguably the worst offensive line that they've thrown out under the Shanahan era currently. I'm talking without Trent Williams. Jalen Moore looked really bad. Burford looked really bad. McGlinchey looked really bad. I feel like Aaron Banks right now is probably your best offensive lineman. And if you would have said that last year, that would have been an insane thing to think of. Like if you heard that last year during kind of when the reports are coming out, like, oh, Aaron Banks looks that bad, because he's looked good this year, and you said he's your best offensive lineman week 4, you'd be like, oh, well, the season's over. Like, I don't really know how else you would think about it. But where are your concerns for this O-line, and do you think they're going to be able to hold up in kind of any capacity without Trent Williams?
It's hard to say. We've suffered through some bad offensive lines on paper, but Shanahan is honestly one of his best skills is working with that bad O line. Um, like we won a Week 17 win and you're in playoff game with who's starting a right tackle? Because Trent tried to play, didn't play. We started somebody right because McGlinchey was out for the whole year. We started backup tackles in the Week 17 game last year, which was basically a playoff game, and we won, and we put up 30 points, so or 20
What
25 points.
was it? Jalen Moore? I know Tom Compton was on the
I
other
think
side.
Compton was on the right side. I
Yeah.
honestly think Jalen Moore might have started because Trent came out and said something after. He was like, I was probably 70%, but Jalen Moore's better than my 70% or something like that. So it's not something that I'm super duper worried about because Kyle does such a good job of making the offensive lineman's job easier. But obviously, when you lose the best offensive lineman probably in the league to a high ankle sprain, which that could be a month and a half that he's out. We may not see him until week 10. Um, so that's obviously not ideal. I don't. If we had Aaron Rodgers back there playing quarterback, of course I would feel a little bit better about it because you can get the ball out so quick and you can hit those screens and stuff like that. But I mean, it does not bode well for Jimmy given how he deals with pressure. And it makes it even easier for teams to stack the box and be like, all right, you guys cannot run on us. Jimmy, go ahead and beat us. And I haven't seen him do that this year. He didn't have to do that against the Seahawks. And he did not do that last night. So maybe he's able to turn it around and sort of give us a vintage Jimmy performance. Because I mean, as critical as we are about Jimmy, like whenever he plays horrible, he does respond and come back and play a little bit better the following week. That Titans game last year was an absolute low point. But really from then on, he was better. I don't think that makes him great. And the bar is relatively low. But he was better. So hopefully he takes a step forward, makes it a little bit easier on that offensive line. But you talked about Aaron Banks. Shout out to him. There were a lot of question marks when we let Lake and Tomlinson walk this offseason, but Banks has been everything that you hoped he could be. He's in there playing every single snap. He's moving well. Burford was kind of that star of camp and kind of took, I think, a lot of that Banks praise away. But he's starting to struggle. I mean, he's a rookie, so it's hard for me to be like you got to be great right now. I think that's the exception and not the rule. And when you're like a rookie or a second year guy, I'm really only looking for you to flash. And he's definitely flashed. But Banks has been rock solid. He's flashed, and just super excited to see where his career goes. Given that there were so many question marks when he was drafted, stock was really low on him last year, but to see him doing well and acting sort of as a pillar on that left side. It'll be interesting to see what he does with Trent out.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to bring up because now Trent is out. I feel like it's a lot easier to play next to Trent than it is to play next to Jalen Moore. who, like you said, he looked pretty solid last year in some relief appearances, but like he's definitely there's been some question marks. And anytime you have a backup tackle in the NFL, that can bode for kind of disaster. Now, next week is going to be a matchup against maybe the best defensive lineman of all time. And the Niners have actually done a pretty good job when it comes to facing Aaron Donald. But dude, Aaron Donald's going to have the kind of like the pick of the litter of who he's going to go up against. Like it's going to be scary. And that's why I'm very concerned about this O-line for the next few weeks. Like your right side has looked really bad. And you brought up that Burford's a rookie. Like I think that's fair. But McGlinchey is awful in pass pro. He's terrible in pass pro. He's a solid run blocker, but he's bad. He's bad. And you have him and Burford. And Burford also similar. Like he's a guard. He's not that great in pass pro. He's had a couple flash plays in the run game that has been nice. But the right side of the offensive line, you're gonna see George Kittle over there helping. Whenever you have a running back in the backfield, your running back's probably going to be lined up onto the right side of Jimmy. And that's even more scary for that left side because you just lost so much where you could kind of scheme around not like scheme around a bad O-line because you could depend so much on Trent Williams, right? Trent Williams going, he's going to lock down that side. He's going to be an anchor. And then Banks is playing well. You're like, okay, so at least we got one side kind of down. I feel like it's kind of been a little hard to see Jake Brendel like it's a little bit tough to evaluate the interior guys. I haven't seen anything that has been like, oh God, he looks terrible, or oh, he looks so good, or anything like that. But it's not really like super. I wouldn't say that it's like a super confident spot to have Jake Brendel as your starting center. But now all of a sudden, your offensive line is pretty beat up. We're like, yeah, let's say you're having a bunch of help for McGlinchey and Burford on the right side. Well, you might have Jalen Moore one-on-one with Aaron Donald on the other side then. Like, that's terrifying. So I think we're going to see so much more offense around the line of scrimmage, even more than we have seen with Jimmy Garoppolo, because if they're trying to like sit in the pocket for like 3-4 seconds, it's going to become like kind of disaster mode. So the O-line was my biggest concern heading into the season, and I think it's honestly grown. Now, the good thing is you brought up Aaron Banks. I'm very happy that Aaron Banks is kind of looking really good, and I don't think it's like to knock him to be like, oh, he's been the best. Like, that's a scary thing. I don't think that's the case, but I think it's just like all of a sudden, like you have pretty bad personnel on your O-line. And the other thing is Trent Williams going out with a high ankle sprain. That could be 4 weeks, right? That could be a month, but he might not be at full strength for another month or two after that. So we might be seeing him kind of get beat a little bit by speed rushers and stuff like that, where he's just not as quick enough or he's not as powerful enough. And like, it might be tough. So anytime you're dealing with this, like a big time injury like that, it's just hard to project how well he's even going to play when he's back in the lineup. So I think that's kind of another thing to bring up, but no, I'm very concerned about the O-line.